On the MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that?
It Takes Two.
Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning.
Jerkins News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Force. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
coming in right
I
and
didn't
left.
say it was anti-vegetable.
Well, you came off that way.
Oh, it shouldn't have.
No, you should stick up
if
for
you're not a
vegetables.
selective.
You like broccoli.
Don't be a selective listener. I love vegetables. If you listen to any of that, it was the portrayal.
Nobody's picking on you.
It was the portrayal in food, separate.
Are tomatoes
separate.
a vegetable or fruit?
Well, that would kill me. But yeah. I don't
Although
know.
somebody did question. They said Tony Dorsett did all three.
Tony
Won
Dorsett
the Super Bowl, won the Heisman.
Well, then every announcer this weekend is wrong.
Well, I'd like this guy to be wrong because I never was a big Tony Dorsett fan.
I love Tony Dorsett.
And by the way, corn has no business being in hot dish. That came in.
Thank you.
There you go. Remember the steak you could add to the salad bar for about $2.
Let me. That's it.
So first thing we brought you in was
going back over every report on the planet.
I am not questioning your knowledge there. You know.
So I'm only reiterating that. I'll have to go back
So
over.
did
Yes, what do you got?
The Cincinnati and the LA Rams, both teams that the Minnesota Vikings almost beat this year.
Yeah.
Almost.
Almost.
That being the key word.
Almost.
Played them really tough.
33-year wait for those Bengals. What number did Tony Dorsett wear?
What was it?
I think it was 33.
Oh.
News and weather brought to you by Rick Electric. They are proud to serve the Fargo-Moorhead area since 1964. Day or night, they're here for you with rickelectric.com.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen,
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
So today on the MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of
You know, we're on YouTube, so people are going to see you.
No, I just started it. Can you do it again?
Yeah. You should, don't shoot at me. That thing's got enough juice.
Drop my corn.
Poor
Why do you
Rusty.
say that's not
Drop
my quarter?
Corn. Drop my corn.
Oh.
Get it?
Buccaneer.
Puts a
It's
corn down.
It's Buccaneer.
Put down my stapler. I could be a policeman.
I can control some
There's a
things
lot.
around here, but Rusty, that isn't one of them.
That's
not one.
kinda-
Jack in
yeah.
general is not one of them.
I need to.
It's out there. It's
I
out
need
there.
to
Clarify.
Pull a little clarify. Let me go.
Because
I said
there
the
was
player.
a player.
He's the only. Joe Burrow is the only quarterback win the Heisman, a national championship, and a Super Bowl if he does.
Because you said player, but what you meant was quarterback.
That's
right?
what I kind of meant. Yep.
Really?
Wow. Tony
Dorsett.
How can I
And
forget?
thank you to a text messenger
Right
for
on the
sending
money.
that
Nice
because
job.
we didn't catch it right away, and you helped us make sure and clarify is what you did. So thank you.
That's right.
And if you'd come, please, to the studio, we would award you a
Nerf
little
gun.
Nerf gun.
Or getting shot with a Nerf gun. I don't know if. Okay.
Did you hear that, folks? He hit the mic.
This is the greatest Nerf gun I've ever seen
I
in my
think
life.
it is too.
Thank you
But
to
it's,
Salad Bar.
it's just
Salad
got
Bar.
trouble written all over it. Now look at. I'm going to hit the ceiling, and it's going to hit Abby.
No.
Ready?
Oh my God!
God.
Wow.
That could
It's
have
not
been.
like there's anything breakable or that shouldn't be hit back here.
Elmer is.
Do you realize
Our engineer's running to the
this
studio.
is crazy.
Give me that.
This day, January 31st, look at some of the birthdays today. Jackie Robinson, Ernie Banks, Nolan Ryan, and Justin Timberlake.
Ooh.
Wow.
That's a pretty good batch of birthdays
Yeah,
today.
Justin Timberlake's fastball. I tell you what.
I remember him.
3 great baseball players and one that was in a great baseball movie.
Yeah.
Justin Timberlake. He put when they were choosing who to draft first. He was in with Clint Eastwood. What was the name of the movie?
You got me.
Justin Timberlake was
The
a
Scout.
Yeah. Was that the name of it? The
Yeah,
Scout.
it was the old. Yeah,
and
Was
his daughter and him, Clint Eastwood's daughter and him, reconnected. And Justin Timberlake was a competing scout. And
yeah,
he didn't take the number one pick. Remember?
Yeah. And Clint
It was a
Eastwood
great
was it.
movie.
Clint Eastwood's like the old time scout, old. Everybody the new wave of analytics and all that. But he's the old guard.
Yep.
Old
the
trouble
school.
with the
Yeah,
curve.
old school.
Trouble with
the curve. That was it.
There you go.
There we go. And I did not need a text message to get that.
Yes.
I'm so proud of
Good
myself.
job.
Thank
Good
the
job.
other one just so Joe Burrow getting the only quarterback national championship Heisman and potential Super Bowl winner. On this day, Joel, the where was I at? Britain. 1993. The wearing of seatbelts in cars became compulsory, became mandatory in Britain. So I was looking. I quizzed Don Haney and Tasha 4.0 in the newsroom earlier today. When did North Dakota? When did it become mandatory?
Well, it's still a secondary.
It is a secondary enforcement.
Yep.
But at what time did it become that?
I will guess 1994.
Okay.
No, it was after that. I think it was 97 session.
Abby, you care to venture a guess when you had to wear
I was going to say 97 because that's when I was born. 96.
Actually, it was July 14th, 1994, Rusty.
Oh,
Nice.
No.
Whoa.
So I went in. So if it went in July, that means it was passed in the 93 session.
Okay.
I went in the 95 session. So I should have remembered whether or not I voted
Look
on
at
it.
some of these seatbelts. In New Jersey, it's a primary enforcement, came in 1985, and they crack you $46 per person. Those are your seatbelts.
Well, but here's the thing about this, right? They talk about, when I talk to the Highway Patrol, how many people are wearing seatbelts out there? We need more. I get it. I understand it.
Yes.
But to me, this is about a generation. Like my dad, you could have made him a law all day long that you had to wear a seatbelt.
And it
He'd be
just
like,
wasn't comfortable to him, wasn't used to it, wasn't
gonna
going to
happen.
do it.
Right. And so now
we know.
guys, we don't even think about it.
Second nature.
Right.
We have
Yeah.
to. You put it on.
Right.
Yep. Put it
Now,
on.
I own a 1980 International Scout. Okay.
Does it even have seatbelts?
It has waist seatbelts,
Ah.
right? So I took my grandkids for a ride in the old Scout, right? And I've got 3 of them, and there's only one belt. So I wrap all
like
3
a
of them
big
up
tarp.
and
Duct tape.
I'm like, oh man, and their parents are going to kill me if something happens, right?
Oregon, primary enforcement, 1990. Fine, $130. Seatbelt usage in Oregon, 97% of the people wear their seatbelt in Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you? Here's my problem with the seatbelt, boys.
Yep.
I put it on after I'm moving,
Do
and
you?
I don't know why. I'll
Like
move.
you take off and then you put it on.
Then I'm like, and I should be putting it on before I ever engage the gear. right?
Yeah. I put
And-
it on like NASCAR driver. I mean,
Right.
you buckle up and you get ready.
By the way,
and
be
then
careful in
drive
Texas.
the limit. Drive the
Texas,
limit.
$200 fine if you're under 17. but 92% of the people wear their seatbelts in Texas. So I don't know. So I was looking at this today because Britain and this state, made it mandatory.
That was always a debate in the session whether or not the law enforcement believes it should be a mandatory that you
should it be a primary enforcement, or
I guess, is
secondary.
I don't know about that, but if I get in the car, I'm not comfortable until I have the seatbelt on. Be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not either.
Right. Yeah,
I catch myself not being comfortable all the time without my seatbelt, so I'm like, oh, forgot it.
Yeah.
And I'm more apt to forget it when I'm not driving.
The lowest. Would you like to know the state that their seatbelt usage is the lowest?
It'd be probably one of the Dakotas.
Well, let's see. Well, New Hampshire's
Wyoming.
New Hampshire's at 67%. North Dakota's at 79%. Yeah, that's
what's
New
South Dakota?
Hampshire is low. South Dakota is sitting at 74, equivalent to North Dakota.
What's Wyoming?
That's
Last one I'll ask, I promise.
85.
Really?
Really?
How the heck do they know?
Where do you put it on the horse?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Caw-caw.
Yeah.
Caw-caw.
It's not a horse, is it? They don't say that.
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, that's a little bit of history.
So
today.
I want predictions.
Yeah.
You got the Bengals, or do you got the Rams?
Oh boy, I tell you what, Joe Burrow impressed me this weekend. I got to tell you, on the road, a win like that, overtime. I mean, gosh darn, that's tough. But I'm kind of leaning toward a California team this year.
Yeah, in their house. But
does that matter though?
Yet the Bengals have just shown it doesn't matter where they play.
I mean, but everybody's like, well, the Rams are playing at home. Well, sure, they know where the bathroom is, but their fans aren't there. I mean, because there's no, hey, gee, I got season tickets, I get to go kind of thing.
Yep.
No, it doesn't work that way.
In fact,
you got to be a multimillionaire to go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, in fact, earlier this week, they had to, Ticketmaster, I saw on one of the social media feeds, Ticketmaster was limiting tickets to an L.A. Area code or a zip code for tickets for the game.
Because they were trying to squeeze out the San Francisco fans.
Correct.
How'd that work for them, by the way? Did you see how many Niners fans were in the house?
That was a lot.
They must be living in L.A. area codes, though.
It's a ways from San Fran to L.A., too, isn't it? I mean,
it's a poke.
It isn't, let's just get in the car and drive there, honey. But
I think that's I mean, Rocky lost, right? I mean, at one time he lost. He lost in the first movie, didn't he? Rocky.
Oh, Rocky?
Yeah. He lost in the first
totally
movie.
Lost.
Yeah, I mean, he lost the first movie, and then
moral victory,
and tie and all that. Then
I would argue he was kicking butt at the end.
Oh yeah,
and he kept winning. So when do you count out Rocky? At this juncture, and that's what like Joe Burrow in Cincinnati is right now. They are this underdog that no longer should be an underdog. That every time you pick against that Bengals team, they prove you wrong.
Clubber Lang.
Clubber
He
Lang.
lost to him, too.
Oh,
Clubber
yeah,
Lang.
yeah. Clubber.
What's your prediction, Clubber? Whole lot of pain.
I think Mr. T is like 5'8" or something like that, if I
I
remember
must break you. Remember Ivan Dragoff? I must break you.
Remember him in the commercial when they sold him in commercials and he was dressed up like Tarzan and they had that fake bleeding?
He just left the set.
It's like, oh, man, you're pushing it too far.
I think it's going to be one heck of a Super Bowl. Right now, I would lean towards the Rams, but just with a whole lot of
who I'm the happiest for Matt Stafford.
Good for him.
I saw him up in Detroit. I thought he was a great quarterback there for years.
Yeah.
Basically, just to see him get a chance like this, I just think it's cool.
I was joking, Dad. Did you see the embrace his wife? I was telling Dan and Doug this morning. The genuine, just to see someone genuine, to your point, she not just hugged him. She went up full, legs lifted off the ground, leg embrace around his hip, hug on top, squeeze the air out of him. That kind of hug on the field.
Just to see somebody that happy.
Absolutely awesome.
That's happiness.
That's happiness. That's what Don does to his wife after he gets done with news. Just jumps into Deb's arms.
Stick around. We'll ask Deb about that right after this.
Culberson here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen,
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of...
Heisman National Championship, Super Bowl.
All right, if you could promise me that all NFL was going to be like the last 2 weekends, I would completely schedule my life around all of it.
Yeah, wow.
I kind of do now anyway,
Well.
but all of it. That second game, the Vikings play the first game. Do I watch the second game or do I go pheasant hunting, all that?
Yep.
This was the best football.
I'm curious what you guys and gals feel about this. There's a high school student in Florida that is, I forget what name of his organization or website. It's like change.org or something like that. And he wants the Super Bowl, and he started a petition, and hundreds of thousands of people have already signed it, to have the Super Bowl changed from Sunday
to Saturday. I'll sign it tomorrow.
Did the research on the lack of productivity in the workplace, in school, and whatever it is, on the following Monday, and the numbers are just out the window.
Would you sign it?
I think I might.
I'd sign it in a heartbeat.
I might.
I'd be down.
Abby, would you sign it?
Yeah, I would.
Look at there.
And I don't even really care about the Super Bowl, but Sundays aren't aren't meant for like a Super Bowl party. That's a Saturday.
Now, the ingredient here, obviously, big TV day Sunday.
Right.
Big television revenue,
I realize it's about money to them, but what about the fans?
Yeah, right. But, to that point, the bars and restaurants, that kind of business that would be drummed up on a Saturday as opposed to a Sunday late night. Now, granted, are they going to be watching TV or not? But, yeah, I think people still watch it. It's a Super Bowl.
Now, imagine the people that this would affect the most in a positive way would be the sewer departments. Because if people are hanging out in bars watching this on Saturdays versus everybody at home, and then it comes to a break and everybody gets up at home and they don't have to wait in line, so it isn't a process. Whereas everybody can just, go to the bathroom all at the same time. The sewer pipes bust.
The sewer pipes. It's like the day after Thanksgiving. Right. Isn't that always the biggest plumbing nightmare
Absolutely.
in the world, right? Or at least the U.S. Yeah.
No. I have no idea about that.
That's Google the Plumbers Association. Tell them their highest volume.
Literally.
Yeah.
Google that, Abby, right now.
Okay.
I know this. I know that it would be good for the sewer union, the sewer worker union, if in fact it was on a Saturday versus a Sunday.
The SU.
Yeah.
The sewer union.
What comes in must come
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so Saturday night, I think that would work. Now you have other things that are scheduled. There's collegiate basketball. There's various other sports that might have to work around, to not go head to head with the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I like this young guy in Florida. I'm going to call him.
People jumped on that my petition.
So let me ask you this: you only get one meat product at all in your Super Bowl party. What's it going to be?
For a Super Bowl party, I'm going with bacon.
Bacon.
Boy, it just makes you, remember Gaffigan? The thing about bacon, it makes you more hungry for more bacon. Boy, that's
Abby.
I like, but for a Super Bowl, maybe like beef sticks, but really good ones and the ones that have cheddar in them.
Yeah.
I think in one of your mini cauldrons that you have that you make crock pot.
Joel's gonna say meatballs.
I have 12 of them.
Oh, meatballs.
Counted them the other day.
If you took just like 30 pounds of a beef arm roast and had that
pulled pork or
all
pulled
that,
beef,
whatever. But and then there was the buns, buns. And then maybe even toasted those buns a little bit, and then the au jus from that and you just sat that out.
Yeah.
I would just French dip till the cows came home.
That'd be good.
French
with
dip,
me on that?
But you want to see me get in trouble, and I realize this isn't going to fit your palate or the ability. But Sarah's going to be mad because I'm going to say pork, and it would be pork ribs. Smoked pork ribs, and
those
then
are good.
Oh man, some with dry rub, some barbecue.
See, I'm thinking bacon wrap poppers. Like
I have those,
exactly,
right?
Yeah,
or just some wings.
I have. And Rusty, we got to get to
a Super Bowl party.
Like 5 bags of those.
We should go to Joel's for a Super Bowl party. Would you break it down almost like a game, like your JV game, being your vegetables not cooked, just raw on the side, your vegetables,
just raw on the side,
and then your varsity game there, all the things we're talking about, and then like your desserts or chips or snacky post game. Is that how you would be a Super? Or would you just put it all
out there, let them trough up.
Yep.
Let them trough up. I mean, it's a process, and if you're too foolish to work through it, then you deserve to be sitting there fighting for the bathroom in the second half, right?
All right.
Jack, you were right with the day after Thanksgiving.
Right?
It has a name.
What is the name?
Thank you, Abby.
Brown Friday.
It is. She's not making that
That's
up.
the worst thing I've looked at in a while.
Yeah. Take that up with your sewer union.
SU.
SU, baby.
Brown Friday.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. Jerkins News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to
absolutely great weekend in the NFL, right? We all saw it, or hopefully we did. Those of you football fans certainly did, but it was a blast. I mean, talk about a great couple of games. Talk about a great couple of weekends of NFL football. So it's got me watching all different games again. You know, it's got me like singling out, going, okay, got to watch that. Put that one down. Got to watch that. Well, now we're down to just one, right? We're down to the Super Bowl. It's going to be the Los Angeles Rams against the Cincinnati Bengals, which I had the Rams game right. I had the Bengals game wrong. I thought Kansas City. And then when it was 21-3 in the first half, I'm like, well, okay, I can go back to the fish house, and because I had buzzed in quick to watch the game, and I was like, this one's over. You know, it wasn't over. It wasn't over. So I don't know where you were if you're a football fan watching it, but wherever you were, it held your attention. I know that because it certainly did me. Some other things happening. Now, last week on Thursday and Friday, there's a couple of things I want to thank you for. I want to thank you for your generous donations to the Cares for Kids Radiothon that took place here. We raised over $170,000. I mean, think about that number. In 2 days in radio for the Sanford Children's Hospital from all over this listening area. You would not believe how much money came from Western North Dakota. Thank you to all of our listeners at Key 660 for that. We went through the kids that are up there, and the kids that are up there from Western North Dakota, you can see why the great folks in Western North Dakota are dedicated to it. You can. Kids from Montana, kids from Western North Dakota, kids from they're there because it's theirs. And you so generously opened up your wallets, and because of that, we raised $170,000 through a radiothon. So you made a difference. You made a major difference, and I want to thank you for that. The second thing I want to thank you for is your patience, because there were issues that we talk about like we did before on this show. There's issues that when they happen, we come together here to talk about them. We do. We come together here to have the debate, have the discussion, maybe hear something you don't like. So you get to go ahead and bring something you do like. All of those things, that's what News and Views is. It's a melting pot, right? Now, with that came some bad news on Friday as well, when we found out Attorney General Wayne Stenehjem had passed away. I received a number of messages over the weekend. Now, understand this. I want to be crystal clear about this. Bob Stenehjem, when I served with him in the legislature before he tragically died up in Alaska, Bob was I considered a good friend. Bob was someone that I had a chance to get to know, work with. He was in leadership in the Senate. I was in leadership in the Senate. We had a great working relationship. All of those things involved. We didn't always agree, and sometimes it got cantankerous, and sometimes it got ornery, and sometimes we got ticked at each other, and all of those things, right? Well, the same is true with Wayne. When I served, Wayne was in the Senate with me the whole time I was in there. Well, no, that's not true. He became, I think after 2000, he got into the Attorney General spot. But Wayne was a very approachable man that you could work with in the Senate, that would just flat out tell you what he would stand for and what he wouldn't, and you could work from there. The one thing I remember Wayne Stenehjem always telling me was this, and it hung with me. I was 33 years old and in the North Dakota Senate, and I was working a bill on behalf of what then was a one-seat minority. So the Democrats had a pretty big swing because there was about, I want to say, 5 Democrats that really ran as Republicans that voted pretty Democrat. So we had that going for us. We had enough votes to get something done. So I'm working this bill, and I remember going to Wayne and saying, so-and-so is going to say this on the floor. And he looked at me and said, Joel, what you're going to learn after you're here for a while is that any really big issue, any really big vote on big issues, the big issues, is going to be settled long before we ever get to the floor. People are going to know how they vote. The speeches on the floor are good because it's talking points for the media. They're theatrics. They're everything that people love to see and do, but they're not effective in terms of switching votes. They're not. He told me that. I remembered it, and he was right. And it was something I learned from. Now, that didn't take away from the fact that we'd still use the floor to make that point. As a member of the minority, we use that floor and floor strategies to make a point all the time. My buddy Steve Tomac taught me a lot about the strategies that you can use on the floor. And he and Danny Wogslin understood the rule book probably as well as anybody I'm ever going to work with in my life on anything, including, well, let's just say a lot of things where rules apply. So that being said, Wayne and I weren't always getting along. And at the end, we didn't have access to him. We didn't get a chance to visit with Wayne when we felt we needed to. And whether there was an individual that was on his staff that was incredibly hard to kind of break through, but none of that changes the fact that for years, Wayne Stenehjem put his name on a ballot and was willing to serve the people of North Dakota. So I can disagree with him on a position or a ruling, or I can disagree with him on throwing North Dakota's name in on a lawsuit here, or, doing what he did in the case of many cases. I mean, we can talk about Susan Bala. We can talk about a lot of things. That doesn't mean I disliked him. That doesn't mean I wasn't going to challenge him because I liked him. That doesn't mean that government isn't supposed to work the way it works, which is there's a check, there's a balance, there's a push, you do these things because it makes for better government. Now, some of you don't agree with that. I get it. Some of you believe that, look, if he's a good person, you like him no matter what he does. Well, that's not me. And I think you've seen that with me on both sides of the aisle. So I didn't just kind of walk and toe the line. I didn't. I remember distinctly coming out and when Wayne and Doug were sparring off to see who was going to be the next governor of the state of North Dakota from the Republican side of the aisle. And you knew whoever won that was probably had a really good chance of winning, and they did, right? And so they sparred. They got after it. I'm gonna add this, that when it comes to Wayne Stenehjem, I think his legacy is going to be the people that he surrounded himself with, that he was friends with. And I'm not talking about the political side. I mean, I instantly thought of a couple of people. One that works in the media that saw Wayne as a friend and yet was still willing to do his job covering Wayne, that I always respected immensely for that. Another was a former legislator that I served with, this beautiful human being named Lois Delmore, Democrat, Wayne Republican, both hail from Grand Forks, both good friends. And I thought of Lois right away. And I thought of how hard this must be on her. I thought of Wayne's brother, Al. Al lived in Wahpeton. He was a state legislator from down in the Wahpeton area for a while, moved to Bismarck, served in government in, I don't remember what the capacity was, ended up lobbying. But Al is someone that when I run into him, I always say hi and have a nice conversation with. And I thought of Al because he lost his two older brothers now to a heart attack. He lost Bob and he lost Wayne. And so I know how close I am to my siblings. And so I know how hard this must be on Al. And I didn't have Al's cell to be able to reach out. But Al, if you're listening, you have the sympathy of this host on News and Views, and I'm sure everybody listening to News and Views for you and the Stenehjem family. All right, when we come back, your thoughts. Also, I want to talk to you through the patience that you gave through that radiothon about another issue that involves North Dakota. And you know what? I can like Doug Burgum. I can enjoy visiting with Doug Burgum. but that doesn't mean I have to like what Doug Burgum did up in the Williston Basin. It doesn't. And we're going to talk about Rick Tavish. We're going to talk about this when we come back. But first, we go to the Weather Cave and visit with Too Tall Tom. Tom?
Weather headlines out there.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of
here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Dear
Mighty
Kansas
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that from It Takes Two? Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michael, Voices Force. Too Tall Tom. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Access, your home.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Dakota Governor Doug Burgum headed up to the Williston base and celebrated, took the stage with a man named Rick Tavish. Now, who's Rick Tavish? Well, Rick Tavish is a Montanian now, right? He at one point lived in Vegas, and at one point spent a bunch of time in the big house, right? He was in the big house for murder. After, I don't know, it was like 3 years or something like that. That conviction was overturned, and yet he still had to go and spend time in the big house because he was guilty of other things involving all of that. So Rick Tavish goes to Vegas, hooks up with a man whose family owned a casino, Ted Binion, right? Ted Binion had a girlfriend, Sandy, a surfer girl who came from L.A., and you can see all this on Dateline. Right? This was just a couple weeks ago that Dateline did a piece on all of this. Anyway, so Rick hooks up with them, starts doing the odd jobs. And the next thing you know, all this money is in the hidden safe at the house where there's only two people with the keys. And Ted ends up dead in what is presumed to be a drug overdose because he'd been using drugs, right? Rick is caught with the goodies from the safe out in the middle of Vegas in an empty lot in the middle of the night, I should say early morning, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever, with a backhoe burying all this. I mean, it looked like a milk semi-trailer, plump full of silver, coins from casinos. I mean, he was burying all this, right? And his answer, I mean, they lied to the cops 2-3 times. The cop was lucky enough to see it and pull up on these 3 guys working on it. So anyway, Rick's stealing the money. That's what he's doing. He's stealing the money, and he goes on. And by the way, this was all after he had been implicated in a kidnapping where he and an associate beat the crap out of a business competitor, so he'd back off. But Rick goes to prison for Ted's murder. Turns out he's been having an affair with Ted's, I guess it was never his wife, it was his girlfriend. And it's found or perceived to be that they're in cahoots on this whole thing. Here's my problem. Rick Tavish is the law's problem, right? The law's dealing with him. What I don't like about all this is my governor and your governor, if you're from the state of North Dakota, taking a stage with this man and acting as though he's one of the keys to our economic future. Acting as though we are just so lucky and fortunate to have Rick Tavish in our lives as North Dakotans. If he wants to build a data center, because that's what this is all about. This is about Bitcoin. This is about cryptocurrency. This is about the ability for the servers that deal with all of this to be in the type of climate where they use the least amount of power possible. So imagine these big warehouses plump full of servers that meet this new currency, this, you're rolling dice on whether or not this is going to take off, but you've got power because you've got a great co-op that does a wonderful job up there. So you have access to power. Now, that being said, I think somebody quoted, there's obviously going to be more jobs during construction, but I think long term we're talking about anywhere from 20 to 30 jobs that this potentially could bring. We're a state right now that is easily short 50,000 workers. 50,000 workers. And so to sit there and act like bringing 20 to 30 jobs in with a man like Rick Tavish involved in the overall project, that's not a big win. That's not something to celebrate. It's something to acknowledge, make sure he's got the permits, do the job, keep an eye on, right? Keep an eye on. But there is no way the governor of the state of North Dakota should have been on the stage with this man. No way. If that's what we've come to, under the guise of, oh, please come to work here. We love you. We'll do anything you want. We'll be there for you. Can you possibly imagine governors from other states with higher profile ever being on a stage with a man like Rick Tavish and thanking him for what he's doing for North Dakota? No. If he wants to work here, more power to you. Go get your permits. Good. Good for the electric company, good for the area, but there is no way I'm kissing his butt. There is no way I'm putting him on the stage with our governor. There is no way. And if it's one of two things. Either Doug Burgum is that foolish and that big of a press hound to say, man, look at what we've done, or he doesn't know how to Google. And I wonder if it isn't the latter. I wonder if his staff doesn't know what the heck was going on. They sent out a memo saying, oh, we knew he's been behaving. He hasn't gotten in trouble for quite a while, kind of a memo. They sure didn't get out word that we had rental assistance, right? But they sure got word out that they like Rick Tavish. We'll talk about more later.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. Right. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. Jerkins News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on the MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of
What's happening in Ukraine? What's going on? What's America's position? What's NATO's position? What's Russia's position? It's all, quite frankly, a little bit scary. Well, whenever a discussion like this goes on, we think of Dr. Thomas Ambrosio. He's our go-to guy. He is a professor of political science at NDSU. He's one of those individuals where if you grab a globe, he can tell you what every country is if they didn't have names on them, and he's willing to give us some of his time. Professor Tom, good to have you in studio.
Glad to be here.
So let's talk.
Sure.
Are we headed to war?
We're not. The United States probably isn't, but it very well is. It's very likely that Russia and Ukraine are, I would say. So we'll see possibly the biggest war in Europe since World War II.
Wow.
Within probably next couple of weeks. We'll have to see. The Olympics may adjust that somehow. Russia may not want to interfere with China's big show going on in another week or so. But also there's some issues in terms of, believe it or not, the weather. If it freezes well, then it's easier to move tanks and heavy equipment. If it's still muddy, then you don't want to do that. So,
why is Russia doing this?
Yeah, Russia's doing this largely because, well, I would say two big reasons. One, Vladimir Putin wants to turn the clock back 30 years to when the Soviet Union dominated that part of Europe and had the prestige to go, one-on-one against the United States for 2 generations. And for him, the Soviet Union collapsing was terrible. He is at his heart a Soviet. And when he was there when it collapsed, and he wants to kind of roll that back. So part of it is that. Part of it is also, I mean, there are 3 reasons, is that for him, Ukraine is not a separate country. He actually wrote an essay in July in which, well, I had someone else write it for him. It's this kind of romantic vision that the Russians and Ukrainians are one people. And he said this multiple times. He even said it to George W. Bush at a summit once, that there is no Ukraine. Ukraine is simply part of Russia. So it's natural that Russia would want to bring this breakaway region into the fold. This region, imagine a family members being torn away by some Western cult of that represented by the U.S. and the European Union. And then I guess the third reason is that Russia's afraid. Russia sees this NATO alliance moving closer and closer to its borders, that the Russians believe that we gave promises that we would not expand after the end of the Cold War, and they believe we broke that promise. We kept moving further and further. They told us multiple times, we don't want this. You keep doing this, we're going to get a reaction.
Did we break the promise?
There's a lot of evidence that, in fact, we did. It wasn't a written promise. It wasn't one that was legal, but we probably did break it. And you could say that, well, we promised the Soviet Union, we didn't promise Russia, but that's just semantics at this point. And it's fine if we want to do that. It's fine if we want to play that great power game, but we have to expect a reaction. We had that reaction in 2008 when Russia went to war with Georgia. We had that reaction in 2014 when Russia seized Crimea. And 2022, we may see another reaction.
So let's go back to the Soviet Union itself, because the perception I think many of us in the listening audience have is that the people of Russia have absolutely no say over their own governance. Okay, and you may stand with them on that, but something happened in the Soviet Union to break it up, to do what you just described. I know we're going back in time. I know some of the names you're going to use, but I want the listening audience to understand why there is a Ukraine.
Yeah, there is. I mean, this context is important. The Soviet Union, of course, we all know the story. Most of us, or maybe a lot of us, grew up in the Cold War. It's kind of weird to my students sometimes. Like, they have no idea that there was a Soviet Union. But you had this institution that had been in office, illegitimately brutalized this population since 1917. But there was still something there. And of course, the Soviet Union was the second version of the Russian Empire. So the Russian Empire, of course, goes back centuries and centuries. And the central authorities, essential institutions of the Soviet Union lost their legitimacy. And that collapsed the Soviet Union itself. It's probably more complicated than that. There was some things that Mikhail Gorbachev did that hastened that collapse. But when the coup against Gorbachev happened in August of 1991, a lot of people were still in favor of keeping the Soviet Union, at least because they were afraid of what would happen without it. Well, it didn't work out that way. We had one country, now you have 15. Ukraine became separate, but Ukraine's always been this divided country. Some parts of it look to the west, some parts of it look to the east. The further you go west in Ukraine, they see themselves as Europeans, not as little Russians. And just the name Ukraine itself means Ukraina, which is the borderland. Well, the borderland of Russia. So it's not, for some, it's not seen as separate. And even just calling it the Ukraine, some Ukrainians actually see that as offensive because they're saying, oh, we're just a borderland of Russia. No, we're our own country. We are Ukraine, not the Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I never know which one to use.
Yeah, no, I've actually, been at a conference where Ukrainians got really angry at people.
I've tried to, in my own mind, justifying the Ukraine, like I say, the United States.
Yeah. Well, we've always said the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then,
Okay, so what does Ukraine bring to itself that Russia would want as part of itself? Are we talking about oil? Are we talking about natural gas? I mean, what is the power behind Ukraine?
Two things. One, Ukraine is, and economics to me is kind of irrelevant here. Ukraine is where Russia got its start. If you look at the history of Russia, it gets its start in Ukraine. That's where the Slavs were first converted to Eastern Orthodoxy. That is the heart of their civilization. And to lose that is to lose their very history. And that's something they just simply can't accept. And then second, and geopolitically, this is geographically important because if Ukraine somehow joined NATO, then Russia is completely exposed on its western flank. Mm-hmm. And that is a flank that is flat plains, as we know here in this part of North Dakota, and there's virtually no geographic defenses. So that really exposes Russia. So it's scary. So you have just a historical kind of emotional tie, and then you also have this geopolitical tie where geography and strategic vulnerability matters.
You said that we're about to be, or certainly Russia and Ukraine and Western Europe are about to be in a war, in many cases bigger than anything since World War II. So let me ask you this, that what I'm getting from, or the pulse I'm getting from leaders in Ukraine is that America and members of NATO are overreacting to this, speaking harder than what they have to speak, and they need to tone down the rhetoric. And that comes from Ukraine.
Yeah, this is the weird thing. This is where there's a lot of misinformation, I think, on all sides, and a lot of reports we're seeing. I'm not sure how much we really can believe. You're seeing some reports, saying that the Russians have started moving blood supplies to the border, and that's like your final stage before you go in. But the Ukrainians are like, don't worry, everything's fine. This is not normal, but this is a problem. But it's something that's manageable. We shouldn't overreact. You had this kerfuffle, a good word there, between the White House and Kiev, where we have two completely different conceptions of what happened in a phone conversation between President Biden and the president of Ukraine, where Biden supposedly said, brace for impact, war is imminent, and Ukrainians are like, no, it's not. And it's weird.
Well, and because of that, I found myself sitting here in the very beginning of this. Okay, they're not a member of NATO. It hasn't exactly always been kumbaya between Ukraine and the United States. There's plenty of examples where that hasn't always been the case. And so if, in fact, Russia, goes into Ukraine, what do we stand to lose? I mean, I know that we're supposed to be about human rights and we're supposed to be about sovereignty, and this is the act of an aggressor. But if Ukraine's going to send that signal, then wouldn't it be logical that people back home might say, you're on your own?
Yes, it would be, but I think part of it is that the United States has put down its marker now. And a lot of international diplomacy is about saying, here is our position, and we almost can't back down. And we have said we want Ukraine looking west. Certainly the 2014 revolution in Ukraine brought in a new government. We start looking west. We see this as important, as well as this, if Russia does go in, this violation of international norms. And also by kind of feeding Russian aggression, it makes the potential for further Russian aggression higher. And instability on the continent is something we simply don't want to see, because possibly millions of refugees will start fleeing towards the West, and that's going to be problematic.
So when I'm going to take a little break. When we come back, believe me, you could hold me on this the whole time. If you have a question of Dr. Ambrosio, all you have to do is text in to 35270. I will pass those on. We'll save comments until after the top of the hour. But first, I find Mr. Too Tall, Tom Szymanski, and get a weather forecast. Tom?
Light mixed precipitation moving into western North Dakota.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen,
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that
from It Takes Two.
Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning.
Jerkins News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michael, Voices Forces.
Too Tall,
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
happening in terms of America's involvement, NATO's involvement, and you just heard the markets, Professor, and one thing that Sarah mentioned was numbers that aren't that bad when it came to wheat. If Ukraine ends up in a military conflict with Russia, my suspicion is because Ukraine is where they raise wheat, you're going to see some things happen to those markets.
That's right. Very likely you're going to see wheat prices rise. We already have an inflation problem. Now, it would be good for the North Dakota farmer who has wheat, but ultimately you're going to see prices rise throughout the world because, Ukraine is the breadbasket of Europe.
So what about oil in terms of gas prices if this escalates into full-fledged war, which it's looking like?
I don't think oil prices will be affected that much, but natural gas prices will be because Russia is a huge conduit for natural gas. And if you have sanctions imposed upon Russia, Russia could respond by cutting off natural gas to Europe, which in turn would mean Europe still has to warm itself. It's wintertime. So they're going to have to get gas from other places. And one of the things that the Biden administration has been doing is trying to figure out, okay, if things go south, how do we get natural gas to them? But there's only so much supply you could get. Mm-hmm. Getting liquefied natural gas, for example, which is multiple additional steps in terms of production. So it's going to be problematic. So you could also see gas prices rise. And I saw an article talking about the rise of gas, natural gas prices already in our region. So that could be a problem.
So does Vladimir Putin have the support of his people or the fear of his people?
I would say neither. I'd say they probably have his respect, or he has their respect. Okay. He's not particularly loved, but there's some hardliners who do love him. He has been able over the last few years, in particular, to eliminate all opposition to him. His only potential opposition are the oligarchs and the powerful people around him within his inner circle.
Interesting. Because if you look at the perception that he has around the world, many people believe that it was mostly a bluff, that Russia doesn't have the military might that they're pretending or sending a signal that they do. Are they foolish? Is Russia this huge military power?
10 years ago, it was a bluff. Now it's a little bit different. Now they can't compete with the United States. They can't go too far out of region. I mean, they are a regional power, but that's going to be about it. But still, if they want to go into Ukraine, they could do it.
Okay. So you think this is going to happen?
I'd say it's more likely than not, and there's a lot of reasons we could talk about.
Yeah, I want to get to that. Yeah. I want to get to the relationship with China. We did this on TV the other day, and I was speaking to someone who lives in the world that you live in, that studies, that teaches, and that individual said they probably have ticked off China big time when it comes to all this saber rattling before the Olympics, when the big light in the eye of the world is going to be on China. And I know you and I talked about that as well. And I just want to visit about what relationship China has with Russia, because it's one thing for NATO and everybody else to take a look at Russian policy. It's another when you're dealing with China at the same time. Stick around.
Exactly.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. Jerkins News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. You know, and all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night. And I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of
focuses on international relations. We're talking to him about Ukraine and about what we're on the cusp of, what we're in danger of, how this is going to go. And if you're just joining us now, before the break, we talked a little bit about, your gut tells you that Russia and Ukraine are about to go to war. That's what your gut tells you.
It does, yeah.
Okay.
It really does.
If that is so, we talked about China and with the Olympics coming up, and China, whether or not they were an ally with Russia, whether or not, these are two countries that are in some way or another working together towards the same goals. Could you see Russia getting in trouble with China doing all this prior to the Olympics, I guess is my question.
Russian policy is not going to be decided in Beijing, but I think Russia will be in consultation with Beijing throughout this whole process, and have been, because Russia is going to become even more reliant upon China moving forward, especially if something happens and they are forever, or at least for the foreseeable future, no longer able, say, to do banking in the West, which is one of the sanctions we're talking about. They're going to have to rely upon China. They're also going to have to rely upon China to, for China to import their oil and natural gas, because rather than shifting those resources westward, they're going to have to shift them eastward. And ultimately, Russia doesn't really sell a whole lot else, other than weapons to some countries, but that's about it. So Russia's going to have to consider how this is going to affect China. But China and Russia are allies, and for all intents and purposes, they don't have a collective security treaty. They don't have a guarantee of to defend each other treaty, but they are in everything else allies against the United States and the West,
which is dangerous.
It is,
which is very dangerous. I don't know why. You said over the last 10 years, Russia has built their military back up. Maybe I'm living 10 years in the past, but I do know this. I'm smart enough to know this, with people that completely don't value the lives of the men and women that serve under them, which China has a real history of that, and Russia has a history of that, that if they're your enemy, that's never a good thing.
Right. And China they have their own views of the region and of the world, and of their own nationalism, which of course embraces Taiwan, which they have made very clear they will unify with Taiwan, whether Taiwan wants it or not. And the current president,
and we've made it perfectly clear that that's not going to happen.
Well, not perfectly clear. That's one of the things we have, this kind of strategic ambiguity, where everyone kind of knows without, kind of lower K knows, but not capital K knows. We haven't fully committed to defending Taiwan, but we've done everything leading up to fully committed. So there is a debate within international relations and foreign policy observers and scholars saying, is it better for us to put down our marker and say we're going to defend Taiwan no matter what, or to still have the strategic ambiguity? We'll defend Taiwan, provoke China. We'll have a strategic ambiguity, make it so that China thinks, well, maybe we can get away with it. So you have all these things going on. We talked about it during the break, a series of black boxes where we kind of see what they're doing, but we don't really know what's going on inside those black boxes. We don't know really what their rational, or what they're actually, what they're processing, what they're seeing from the world, how they're making decisions, and then how that relates to their foreign policy outputs. So we don't know what's going on in Vladimir Putin's head. We have a pretty good clear view. We have a pretty good view of what's going on in China as well, but we really don't know the decision making, and we don't know their time frames. With Russia, I think it's more immediate, given how many troops they've sent. With China, I think it's a little bit longer term.
Okay. This text comes in. Some of this we did discuss. Other points I think you're going to want to be able to respond to. It said, I missed part of this segment, so forgive me if this has already been discussed. A recent article in Forbes asserted that, number one, NATO considers Ukraine to be a liability due to corruption and economic distress. Number two, a tremendous amount of natural gas is imported from Russia by NATO countries, which you've made clear, and could be cut off as a response to economic military aggressions. And for these reasons, they may not be in favor of a military conflict or a united response with the United States. The article also asserts that Putin is a narcissist and that simply needs a win right now, and Ukraine is personal to him, and that Biden should soften his rhetoric and let Putin have a win of some kind to relieve tensions. They want to know your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's a lot. Ukraine is not this paragon of democracy. The current president has done a lot to kind of roll back the democratic promise that came about in 2014. They are a completely corrupt society from top to bottom. The oligarchs, who are basically the main business people, kind of run things. It is incredibly corrupt. That being said, there kind of are corrupt oligarchs. As opposed to and there's a lot of people who want Ukraine.
Kind of like Iran and Iraq were at some point in history.
Exactly.
The Shah wasn't a bad guy as long as he was with us.
As long as he was with us.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who really want to bring Ukraine into the fold one way or another. And in 2008, the United States pushed NATO, and NATO made this promise to Ukraine saying, Ukraine, as well as Georgia, which sparked the war, Russian invasion of Georgia, you are on the track towards NATO membership. Eventually, you will get there. So we have already said we want Ukraine in NATO.
What's our incentive in that, though? What do we gain by Ukraine being in NATO?
What do
they offer us?
Well, they offer our strategic depth against Russia. They offer us geography. They offer us just simply bigger. And I think there's some element to which it's almost like playing the game Risk, where you want more territory, or a coloring book of the world in which you're just filling in, you're shading in countries as yours. And I think there's a mentality that has developed, and we talked about this off air, that from the 1990s, in which America emerged when the Soviet Union collapsed as the most powerful country the world had ever seen. And there is a group of people, President Obama's main foreign policy advisor called it the blob of foreign policy people in D.C. from the left and the right, who see that as natural and want to continue that party and extend that party. And that rubs other countries the wrong way, obviously. So Ukraine is the big prize. If we were able to somehow get Ukraine, we've truly won the Cold War or the post-Cold War, because Russia without Ukraine can never really see itself as whole.
Do the other countries in NATO see that? Do they see this as something that, look, I don't know why we're in as big of a fight potentially here as we are defending Ukraine. You just mentioned they're corrupt from top to bottom. I'd like to think that other NATO countries aren't.
Right. The British seem to be taking a very strong stance on this, and there could be some domestic politics reasons for that, distract your population from Partygate.
Mm-hmm.
Boris Johnson's in some serious trouble. The countries of Eastern Europe. So we have this odd divide. Western Europe, let's ignore Britain for a second. They're, especially Germany, is much more hesitant about this. And they're like diplomacy. Whereas the East Europeans, who had already suffered generations under Russian and Soviet domination, they're the ones who are more hardcore, because they see what happens in Ukraine may happen to them.
Okay.
And a country like Poland literally borders Russia in the little enclave of Kaliningrad. The Baltic states border Russia. On their natural border as well as Kaliningrad. So they see anything that happens in Ukraine as reflective upon them. And now that we've said we are going to punish Russia for if they do go into Ukraine, they see, the East Europeans see, if we back off from that commitment, then maybe we'll back off from a commitment to defend them in the future.
So if you look at the military power of NATO, okay, look, we've gotten to the point where we have to use force. What percentage, if you had to guess, of the military might of NATO is the U.S.?
I wouldn't know how to put a number on it, but it is the U.S. I mean, we saw this when NATO went to war against Libya, and the United States tried to take a back seat to this. President Obama took some grief for that, but we had to basically step up because it was like the French and the British ran out of missiles and bombs, just going after Libya.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're not looking at war with Russia, but certainly tensions will rise.
Dr. Thomas Ambrosio is our guest. We're talking about Ukraine. We're talking about where the U.S. sits. When we come back, I want to get your take on whether or not the Biden administration has left themselves open to the criticism of how they're handling this the same way you just mentioned Boris Johnson. Is it good for Joe Biden, whose poll numbers are down in the U.S., to have a conflict in Ukraine? Is that good politics? So I want to ask you about that. But first, I head to the weather cave and find Too Tall Tom.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Dear
Mighty
Kansas
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that?
It Takes Two.
Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning.
News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Force.
Too Tall Tom.
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your home.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of
Dr. Thomas Ambrosio, he is a professor of political science at NDSU. He's got his doctorate, and he teaches international relations and Russian foreign policy we're talking to him about right now. We talked about China, the role there. We talked about the strength of NATO, whether or not, in fact, it truly is strong. I know I'm putting you in a bad spot here, but predictions. I mean, what do you see happening? How do you see this playing out? Because clearly this is a conflict that I don't think is going to be able to be avoided.
No, and I do think there's something's going to happen, largely because Putin has, and I've used this term before, just laid down a marker. Vladimir Putin gave the U.S. and NATO draft treaties in which this is our demands and laid them out. He's laid these demands out multiple times. And he's now sent all these troops to the border. It's almost impossible for him to back down without looking weak. The demands that he made to us, he had to have known we would never accept. So I think this is his way of saying to his people, look, I tried everything. And you're starting to see, even in the Russian media, where they were not talking about war, now they're starting to talk about war. But it's war that the West is going to impose by forcing Ukraine to attack Russian positions. They're already getting their people prepped for this, and they have a very closed media system. Their people get largely Moscow-dominated news, and as a result, that is a big sign that they're trying to get their population ready, they got the military ready, the logistics ready, and they've made a position they can't back down from.
So let's assume, just for debate's sake, that we position, we say, and then Russia goes into Ukraine and we do nothing. We do nothing. What happens?
Well, we will put sanctions on. We have to as well. I mean, the Biden administration has made it very clear, and they've been actually very specific about certain types of sanctions we'll do. Not the whole gambit of what they'll do, but again, everyone said, here is what's going to happen. For Russia said this is unacceptable, NATO expansion. We've now said this. You go into Ukraine, we're putting on sanctions, and we will respond, but what do we do then afterward? You can only throw in so many sanctions on Russia. Russia has insulated itself from sanctions in preparation for this. So what then?
So let me ask this. We put these sanctions on now rather than wait. We show them the strength of these sanctions before the invasion of Ukraine. Is there any benefit to that?
No, that would basically make us look like the bad guy. A lot of this is public relations. We want to do it in response to Russia, and that could provoke Russia. Again, we don't know exactly what's going on in the Kremlin. Maybe this is all a big, he's just faking it. He's just bluffing, but we want to wait. And I think the bill is going to go through the Senate. I think they're going to be talking about it this week. It'll be conditional on what Russia does. So I think that's a lot of how we're going to respond to Russia. You'll have some people say, of course, Biden's not being strong enough, but you're going to hear that.
Is
anyway.
He being strong enough?
Yes, I think this is all he can do at this point.
Is he doing it basically because he isn't strong at home?
Now, that is a big question that people are starting to raise.
What about his family's interest?
That's another big issue. What does, people ask about what does Russia have on Trump? What does Ukraine have on Ukraine, given Biden's son and his goings on in Ukraine? Yeah, this is especially when we have the Ukrainians saying, well, stop escalating. This is not as bad as you're saying it is. Mm-hmm. So what is going on? The black boxes.
Yeah.
And something we'll find out sooner rather than later, I think.
Doctor, can we do this again someday?
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it. All right, when we come back, somebody wants to be Secretary of State. We'll find out who.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to.
So today on the MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Dear
Mighty
Kansas
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see
from
that?
It Takes Two.
Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
In about 2 seconds. He's a state representative, District 22, which, I don't think it's fair to the rest of the district to always say this, but when I think of District 22, I think of Castleton. It's kind of that home base. Biggest town is probably the best way to put it. Michael's a Republican, lives in West Fargo, which part of District 22 is part of West Fargo. Works as a managing partner of House Seed Farms, and he's been in the House since 2017. And the hook to all of this and why we wanted him to come in here is because he wants to be Secretary of State. Michael, good to have you on News and Views.
Joel, thanks for having me on.
Obvious question, why?
Well, as we're seeing, of course, across the country, elections is a big topic. So I'm running to preserve and protect North Dakota's election integrity. The Secretary of State deals with business licensing. I want to make North Dakota the easiest place to start a business. And you sit on the land board as Secretary of State. I want to ensure that North Dakota's natural resources remain for generations to come.
Okay. Let's go through those bit by bit. The business I own, I'm involved in a couple of other businesses, right? And I have to tell you, whatever the Secretary of State's office is doing now, they're doing well. I mean, once I think I goofed up on the filing date. I called, they walked me through it. It was easy. I mean, if you're going to keep up that tradition, do, because the lady I talked to is just a wonderful person. So that's part of running a business.
Joel, the staff at the Secretary of State's office, I think, does a fabulous job.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some things we can improve upon as far as processes and timing. Technology-wise, we've heard it in several campaigns previous for the Secretary of State's race. I think they've done a fantastic job, especially the last 4 years, updating that technology. But I think there's certainly things we can improve on as far as the efficiency of it, the timing. The website has everything on there. It does. The website has everything on there. Sometimes it's hard to find.
Yeah.
I think we can make it a little more user-friendly.
And here's the thing. It was hard for me to find. And then when she showed me where to find it, I found out it was my fault. So I just want to be clear about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about the land board as well, because, this became a major issue in North Dakota during the boom, and it's still out there. And there's a lot of people that talk about what rights they have versus others who want to access their land, everything else that goes with it. I mean, do you see that as a bigger percentage of the Secretary of State job now than what it had been in the past?
I think it's equally as important. Again, as you're managing minerals, all these acres, I think my responsibility, how can we get what's best for the public? And also, how can we get what's best for funding our education system? Balancing that out to have good policies in place to really take advantage of what we have on the ground and under the ground.
Of course, the last one that you mentioned that I do want to talk to you about is there seems to be people running for Secretary of State offices around the country to be politically active rather than judges on elections. Secretary of State, I think North Dakota has a very good history of Secretary of States honoring the election process and not saying, look, I didn't like the results. What can I do to change the rules? Where do you fall in all that?
Well, the Secretary of State has to follow the law set by the state legislature. I'm a lawmaker now. I would expect Secretary Jagger to follow state law. If I'm fortunate enough to serve the people of North Dakota, I will follow the law set by the North Dakota legislature.
Do you see any need for any laws changing in regards to our election process?
This last session, there was a bill to eliminate the private funds to fund public elections. I supported that. It passed overwhelmingly in the House. It passed the Senate. Governor Burgum signed that into law. I think there was 47 of our 53 counties that took some private money to help fund their elections. To me, that should be a taxpayer dollar thing, not a super wealthy individual who can, maybe all intentions are great, but that should come from taxpayer dollars to run our elections.
How did those counties justify it? I mean, what were they doing?
I can't begin to tell you, I guess, the rationale for that. I think it was grants made available to county governments. And I'm sure maybe their line of thinking was, hey, let's try to save the taxpayer dollars here and take advantage of that. But to me, I think county governments, state governments, that should be general fund dollars, not private dollars.
How about absentee voting? We've got issues in terms of, what people perceive as the IDs that you have to show, whether or not you have to show IDs, tribal IDs. I mean, how are we doing, when it comes to our absentee voting?
Absentee voting, mail-in voting, we do it correct here in North Dakota. We saw in 2020 some states really ramp up their mail voting. I don't know if the processes were as well as we do it here in North Dakota. There's counties that are vote by mail counties. Sure, they have one polling place available on election day, but for the most part, it's all mail-in voting. We've got a process for that. You apply for a ballot application. That's cross-referenced at the Secretary of State's office to ensure that you are legal citizens of North Dakota. You do live at that residence with our DOT files. There's a check and balance to it here in North Dakota. It's extremely popular, too. A lot of people like it.
What's how I vote?
Yeah, so there you go. And I think it's a very efficient process. It works. It's trustworthy, and we've done it because it was developed here, Joel.
Yep. What about tribal IDs?
Tribal IDs, we passed, was it the 2017 legislative session of voter ID law? Tribal members can get free IDs to indicate where they live, where they're supposed to vote, and to me, it's been seamless.
What about people helping people get to the polling places? What about laws that would stop anyone from being able to hand out
you think like a bottle of water, right?
Yep. I mean, what about laws that would do that? Where would you stand on that?
Yeah, I think if a polling place wants to provide a glass of water for someone in line, a bottle of water, that's great. Why wouldn't they? That's common sense. I do take issue though if there's a line outside the polling place and I've got a How for Secretary of State branded water bottle. Here you go. Here's a bottle of water. I do take issue with that. But as far as a polling site, if they want to do that, why not?
I got to tell you, I would have a real problem with that too. I mean, if somebody had a How for Secretary of State sticker on a water jug, handing it to somebody waiting outside, that's campaigning.
Yeah.
That is. If you're trying to help somebody because you didn't put enough ballot sites or polling places, I should say, to where people are standing in the heat for how long and you're giving them water, I don't see any problem with that. So I think you and I are going to be in pretty much agreement on that.
Well, and let's think about this too here in North Dakota. The first Tuesday in November, most of the time it's snowing out too, but
hand out orange hats with for deer season, right? So I want to ask you about the big one, because to me, this is, a lot of people didn't know the roles of Secretary of States until the 2000 election. When you hear a president of the United States call a state, like he called the Secretary of State down in Georgia, and say, look, I just need 11,000 votes. If you were to get a call like that, now the better way to ask this is, did the Secretary of State in Georgia get it right?
As Secretary of State, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, Joel, you have to follow state law. End of discussion. You have to follow state law. If I were in that position to get a phone call from a president from either side of the aisle, I would listen to what the president would have to say. Ultimately, my answer to him, again, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, what does North Dakota law say? Was that law followed? To me, it's pretty simple.
You don't go looking for votes, looking to throw out ballots.
No. I mean, you obviously do your due diligence. You contact every single county across the state. Hey, what did you see here? Was there any type of irregularity? Did you have issues with the ballot machine? Did you see something funny happen out in the parking lot? What did you see? You do your due diligence that way. But ultimately, if state law is followed, what more can you do?
If somebody put pressure on you like that, if Joel Heitkamp's running for office and he loses by 2,000 votes, and I call you as Secretary of State and I say, look, I just need 2,000 votes. You got to find me 2,000 votes. Do you think I'm breaking the law?
Breaking the law, I'm not sure. Are you running your campaign with integrity? Probably not. Now, we've got policies in place here in North Dakota. If you're within 2,000 votes, what percentage of the vote was that? Does that trigger a recount? We have automatic triggers for recounts for those types of processes. But for you to say, I'm going to go, hey, find some votes for me, I don't know if it's breaking law, but it's certainly not the right thing to do.
Okay. Well, I think you passed every test I had for you. For me, I don't know what's going to happen in this race. Do you see yourself having Republican opposition, knowing that it's an open seat?
Secretary Jagger was first elected in 1992. This is the first time, as you said, in 30 years now, there's an open Secretary of State's race. There may be. I don't know. I know what I can do. I'm going to go out, reach all four corners of the state, talk to as many folks as possible. If there's competition or not, to me, that doesn't matter. I have a job to meet as many voters and explain how I'd run that office.
My suggestion to you, if you do win this office, and this is my bias being a member of the media, be accessible.
Sure.
I mean, Al Jagger, when we called Al, would always come on, and he'd always answer. Maybe didn't like the answer. Maybe it thought that he should have answered a different way, but I know this. He always came on, and I respect the heck out of that. And so if you win this race, I'm sure we'll be talking more in the future.
I hope we do. I hope we do, Joel.
People want to know more about your race. Do you have a Facebook page set up, or what do you have?
I've got a Facebook page. It's Michael Howe, clean and simple. I've got a website, howfornd.com. You can find more information that way. Get a hold of me. Would love to hear from you.
Spell Howe for him.
Howe.
There you go. So, all right. Michael, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joel.
We're going to take a little break. We'll head to Too Tall Tom and get our weather forecast. Tom? Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that from It Takes Two? Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. Jenkins News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Too Tall Tom. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to
home of Farmers Union Insurance, simply different. Also, the North Dakota Association of Rural Electric Cooperatives, your source for power and information. Pfeiffer's Auction, Realty and Land Management, the industry leader in raising and managing your farm. Check them out. They'll make sure everything gets sold the way it should get sold when you need it to get sold. Check them out at Pfeiffers.com. Also, Nielsen Brand Law, your attorneys for life, and Broadband Association of North Dakota. They're reliable. They're committed to you, and they provide the fastest broadband internet across the state. I'm going to dig for something here, which is my way of saying I'm buying some time, but there's a post that went out there that I've got to bring to your attention, and this went through social media, and this comes from the Bowman County Sheriff's Office. Okay, it said, "Good morning, Bowman County. Last night, Deputy Colin Dunn and I attended a very important meeting in Dickinson. It was sponsored by the North Dakota Farm Bureau. We learned more about a dangerous attempt by the federal government to attack our ranchers and farmers by stealing their lands under the cover of climate change. The attack falls under a couple names, 30 by 30 land grab or America the Beautiful. Don't be fooled by the smoke and mirrors of the name. Trent Lewis, an agriculture advocate, spoke with great passion and knowledge about how this will have an impact on our food supply as a result of this land grab. As your constitutional sheriff, I stand with our ranchers and farmers and will deputize as many of our citizens of Bowman County as necessary to bring a halt to this unconstitutional act." He's going to deputize citizens of Bowman County as necessary to bring a halt to this unconstitutional act. If you would like more information on this, stop by the office. I have some useful facts. Today, I will be contacting every sheriff in the state, our governor, to stand in opposition to this threat that comes from Frank Erbley, Bowman County constitutional sheriff. What's he getting at? So he's going to deputize citizens of Bowman County to, this is a point that somebody made, and I was left shaking my head. I talked to 4 or 5 people, some of them Republicans. Clearly, this guy, very conservative Republican, but they were like, "Joel, this is Gordon Call stuff." I mean, that's what this is. This is Gordon Call stuff, and taxpayers are paying for it. And so I'm just going to say this right now, that if the sheriff of Bowman County disagrees with me, he's welcome to come on this show. In fact, we will extend an invitation out to the sheriff and ask him to come on this show. But I want to point out one other thing that's happening out there. This is a direct result. These divisive, I will deputize, we will take them on, I'm the constitutional one in charge of all this. We will take on all of that in a conversation with the North Dakota Farm Bureau, who has moved so far right, that they're going to end up bringing guns into all of this. And so what is the problem? If a farmer wants to sign up for CRP, if they want to work with the federal government, what's the problem? Where's the land grab? Where is the federal government coming in so that you've got to get people riled up so bad that you end up deputizing people and empowering them to shoot people? Because that's what you've done. If you've deputized them, you've empowered them to go about shooting folks if they feel they need to be as constitutional deputies. So, Farm Bureau, you are welcome on as well. Let's visit about it. Good riding with you, folks.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on the MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things.